So before this video starts, I want to say one quick thing, and that is last week's episode was what if there was a second civil war, and that video was actually recommended to me by a viewer from a previous video. So if you have any mapping content ideas, if you tell me it, there's a 99% chance that I'll do it as long as it's interesting. That's all I wanted to say. Please enjoy. So today we're going to be looking at what if Asia had a massive war. Now, Asia is made up of a bunch of different ethnic groups. It spans all the way to over here in Turkey and Russia bordering Europe, down here to Israel that borders Egypt, and then over in the Far East. So there are a lot of countries. Asia has the second most amount of countries. Africa has the most amount, I believe 52. And so there are a bunch of different ethnic groups, and some of them, or most of them, don't really mix well, but there are just going to be two teams for this. Of course, that's going to be red and blue. So let's start making the teams. So, first, we're going to start assembling the red team. So, first, we're going to have China on it, and of course, their close friend, North Korea. Now, in recent times, I know China and Russia haven't been that close, but it just makes more sense to put them on the red team. While we're at it, might as well start the blue team. So we're gonna go ahead and put South Korea on it, Japan on it, and we're gonna also put India on. Next, back to the red team, we're gonna put on Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran. For the blue team, we're gonna get Taiwan and the Philippines. They're also gonna be able to get Vietnam. Back to the red team, we're going to see Iraq and Syria join, and we're also going to see Palestine join them because Israel is going to be joining the blue team along with Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Azerbaijan and Georgia. Armenia is going to the red team, Lebanon's going to the red team, Cyprus over here is in Europe. I think Yemen goes to red team, Oman goes to blue team, and then the rest of this peninsula goes to the blue team. And Jordan will go to the red team. Next we come to Mongolia, sandwiched between China and Russia. So I think it's obvious it's going to go to the red team. Over here we have Nepal, Bangladesh, and Bhutan. Nepal's gonna go to blue team as it's had some problems with China. We're gonna see Bhutan also go to the blue team, but Bangladesh is going to the red team. Myanmar also is going to go to the red team. Down here, Indonesia, we're gonna go ahead and see Thailand join the blue team, and then Laos, Cambodia join the red team, and then Malaysia, that too will join the blue team. And then comes to Indonesia, kind of a tricky one. Indonesia has been rebuilding relations with China, but it is kind of close to the blue team. And looking at the map, I think I'm going to give this to the blue team. Over here in Central Asia, I've been avoiding this because this is going to be difficult. All right, Kazakhstan is going to go to the red team, and now we've got this mess. Over here in Central Asia, we're going to see Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan join blue team, and then Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan join the red team. And so this is the team. It looks pretty favorable on the red team, but I guess we'll see how this goes. So first off, we're going to start over here in Southeast Asia. We're going to see Indonesian as well as Vietnamese and Thai forces attacking both Myanmar and also Laos and Cambodia. So they're going to try to avoid going through the jungle, and they're going to come in from all sides. Over in Myanmar, they're going to just cut the tail off and move up to the more important part with all the cities. India sends a team into Bangladesh and goes through the northern part of it, and also sends a force into the middle. Over in Pakistan, China, and India, we see Pakistani forces coming into India as well as Chinese forces getting into here. In the east over here, Japan and South Korea battle with North Korean as well as Chinese troops as they make their way across the 38th parallel. In South Korea, we see Japan and South Korea pushing past the 38th parallel into North Korea and are beating the Chinese and North Koreans just a little. Over here, we have Iranian troops from the south, and we have also Afghanistan troops from the south coming into uh, Turkmenistan. Over, we see the other stands cutting off Uzbekistan and taking all of this land here. And over here, we see Turkey just pounding the living daylights out of Armenia. Over in Israel, we see them going after both Lebanon as well as Palestine. Meanwhile, over in India, things aren't going too well for them as they have to defend themselves from both the Pakistanis and the Chinese. And the front lines are going to connect and start to push down into the northern part of India. Over down here in the south near Karachi, we see the Pakistanis starting to invade there and are going to cut off the Indians' coastal access. Things are looking better for the blue team over in the southeast as they are able to wipe out more of Myanmar's tail as well as go after the mainland. Cutting them off from the south, they start to move up, capturing more important land. Over in both Laos and Cambodia, they are being invaded by multiple sides, and eventually Cambodia is circled and ultimately captured. They march up Laos and are taking more and more cities as they attempt to knock them out the war. China decides to open up another front over here in Vietnam and are slowly going down it. Over in the Korean Chinese front, we see the South Koreans and the Japanese being halted just outside of the northern front. Meanwhile, over in Central Asia, we know that the blue stand countries aren't going to be lasting forever, and yeah, it's over for them. We see Russia starting their invasion of Georgia and just completely not holding back, as of course they are doomed. They start to attack then Azerbaijan as well as Armenia, or at least they try to liberate Armenia, and things go pretty well for them. The Turks are focused on the Iranians in the north and attempt to cut them off from the Caucasus region. Down south, they also start their attack on Syria and take northern parts of it and go down the coast to meet with Israel and eventually wipe out Lebanon. In the process, Palestine is also wiped out. Israel troops march into both Syria as well as Jordan, and they move across the desert, trying to take as much land as they can, and eventually are able to link up with the Saudi Arabians and take out Jordan. Over in the Indian front, we see Pakistan taking more and more land and are cutting off more and more of India's access to the ocean. A third front comes out of southeastern Pakistan and it moves down to connect with this one down here. The Chinese Pakistan front continues as they pound into India from the north, and things aren't looking too good for them. Though they need help over here in the west, India continues its efforts in Bangladesh and are able to capture it. Myanmar is also struggling a little as it is a bunch of countries against it, and they're able to easily get up there and go along its coast to connect with Bangladesh, which is controlled by India. Eventually, the tail is just completely wiped out, and they also move up Cambodia or Laos. They don't stand much of a chance and are just captured. Yeah. Uh, Well, the Chinese, they're here because they're here to save the day and are going into North Vietnamese, and there's not really much they can do. China's the second most powerful country, and they're going to have quite a field day over here. But something with the Chinese is they're kind of overexerting themselves over here in India, in Vietnam, and in South Korea, and that's going to start taking a toll on them. And it's going to start over here in the East as the South Koreans and Japanese are able to easily push up. The whole country's captured, but they're halted at the Chinese South Korean border. We see the blue team over in the Middle East not really caring that much about Syria and are instead going after Iraq. But not if Russia has anything to say about it as they start to invade Turkey from the north. Now, this is going to be a very important battle as Turkey is one of the blue team's best countries and they aren't going to lose it without a fight. So, Saudi Arabia and Israel, both very powerful countries, are also going to send troops over to Turkey to help defend. But meanwhile, as they're trying to get there, Russia is going to take more and more land from Turkey. They're also going to start sending forces to Azerbaijan as well as Armenia to reclaim Armenia and capture Azerbaijan, which they are able to successfully do. Turkey's push in Iran is halted and eventually repelled as they start to attack then from the east and are pushing into Turkey slowly. As the Israeli and Saudi Arabian troops arrive, the front line starts to get a little more steady and eventually is halted. Over in India, we've seen all of the front lines starting to link up, as now India is in quite the pickle. From the Philippines and Taiwan, we see a small landing in China, but nothing too extreme, as they start to try to make a front line over here, but of course are halted. In Vietnam, the Chinese continue to push down and are nearing the capital and eventually might take it. Myanmar doesn't have much of a chance, and they eventually surrender. Now, Southeast countries are going to send aid to India before it's too late and India loses out on too much land, which they're going to do. The Chinese are going to start another front line in India and are going to attempt to cut off this main part of India from this eastern part of India. And that is just what they do as they march straight in and capture this important connecting point. Over in the Middle East, we see Iranian and Pakistani troops landing in the UAE and are able to breeze through it. They also go into Qatar and capture all of Kuwait. Iraqi troops start to march into Saudi Arabia and take the northern part of the country and are slowly going in. The Middle East, the blue team in the Middle East have a lot to focus on. They have Turkey over here. They have their unfinished front line in Syria. Iraq is invading them, and now they got Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan sending troops over here. Not to mention Yemen, which is going to start its invasion of Saudi Arabia. It goes up and is attempting to cut off from the coastline, but not before Oman gets involved and starts its small invasion of Yemen. From Qatar, the red team is able to get into Saudi Arabia and also from Kuwait. The UAE is eventually captured as they too start their invasion from there into Saudi Arabia. Due to all this, Saudi Arabia isn't going to be able to help Turkey that much, and the red team pushes forward in there. Israeli troops are still headed there, but they're also going to start focusing on Syria again and are pushing a little bit out. By now, Russian, Iranian, and Iraqi troops are arriving in droves and are pushing Turkey further and further back. There isn't much you can do, and now they started to re-liberate Syria. Back in the Korean front, we see Japanese, South Korean, and Taiwanese troops able to successfully cross the border into China and are taking small amounts of land that eventually are going to amount to quite a bit. We see the Japanese getting their revenge on the Russians and are going to take back Sakhalin, even though there isn't really much on it. I mean, there are a few missile silos, but it doesn't really matter. They're going to start their invasion of China and are going to continue across to this little bay area and are once again going to be met with a wall of Chinese troops. Over in the south, China continues its push through Vietnam and Laos, but is eventually stopped from the amount of South Asian troops here. Indonesia is a pretty powerful country. Over in the south, China continues its push through Vietnam and Laos, but is eventually stopped from the amount of South Asian troops here. Indonesia is a pretty powerful country, so they have a lot to work with. From this front line over here, we see China going into main India and are going to take quite a bit of land. India is at a breaking point and is losing quite a bit to the Pakistani Chinese troops. And over in this main front line over here, it is not looking too good for them. By now, Saudi Arabia is going to look like it's infected with the chicken pox with how much red spots are coming out of it. And eventually, it's going to take quite a toll on it as all these invasions are proving to be quite a bit to handle for Saudi Arabia. Their capital, Riyadh, is like right there, maybe. And that's where the red team is going to focus on. They link up the front line and start their march towards it. Turkey is pushed back even more and might even lose their capital soon. Over in Jordan, we see troops pushing the blue team out, and now they're at the front door of Israel. So the red team isn't really going to care that much about Nepal since it's just mountains. They're just going to opt for going around it, and they're going to squeeze the Indians down even more, and it's not looking good for them. Over in Myanmar, we see some Chinese troops popping up to take back some of the land, but they're not going to focus it on that too much as they're going to keep on trying to liberate their fallen country friends and take out Vietnam. The front line in South China over here is just going to be completely kicked out as there isn't much that they can do, and they're going to start their invasion of Taiwan. Over in this part of China, we see the blue team continuing to advance very slowly, but making quite a thick line across China. Russian, Iranian, and other Middle Eastern troops are going to keep pushing through Turkey, and as a result, the capture of their capital is imminent and will happen. As it does, Turkey has fallen and is now completely red. Now they move their focuses down south and they just plow through the Israelis and are at the front step just as the Iraqis are and are just going to completely take it over. Saudi Arabia is slowly collapsing from the amount of red troops there, and eventually they really have no choice, and the Middle East is now completely red. So now the only front line is over here and over here. And India is going to continue suffering as the Pakistani troops are going to go down its coast to hopefully get down and move across central India. The Chinese make their way down Vietnam and are capturing city after city and liberating city after city, and eventually are going to come away from India and eventually are going to start their invasion of Thailand. Taiwan is fully captured, and in the east, we see the blue team continuing their efforts as they are able to curve around this bay and are moving to China's more important cities. Russia decides to give Japan a have at it and just takes back Sakhalin completely, and now they are going to start their invasion of Japan. Japan is going to be a little bit of panicked. As long as it's not the main island, they're kind of fine. But because of this, they're going to withdraw some of their troops. China also decides that they're going to try a naval attempt at South Korea and take a little bit of the coast. From the south, we also see Chinese troops getting into Japan, but not that much. We see the front line that's going through central India getting longer and longer, as well as wider, as they're taking quite a bit of land. With an eventual huge encirclement, the Indians really have no choice and surrender. Blue team has lost their strongest uh, country, and also Sri Lanka is going to fall. And so now it's just up to this ragtag team over here. Red troops push into Bangladesh and also this eastern part of India and are taking no survivors. They push in, and from here they start to reliberate Myanmar and go down its coast. The blue team has now decided that defense is their best option, and they decide to pull out their troops from Myanmar. The blue team down here suffers defeat after defeat as they are slowly pushed back by the immense power of the red team. And by now, it's not looking too good for them. And what better thing to do now than to quit while you're kind of ahead? And that's what they do. So here we have the peace treaty, and of course, Asia is going to be looking a little different. So let's start from east to west. So over here, we see South Korea got quite a bit of land from North Korea. The Japan South Korean front did pretty well. They didn't lose that much, so they are going to get quite a bit of land from this. North Korea still exists though. Down here, though, we see Taiwan is fully claimed by China, as Taiwan was completely invaded. Now, over here, we see that nothing has changed, and this is because, as you, I'm sure, remember, the blue team was able to capture Laos, Cambodia, and Myanmar, but towards the end, China was able to take quite a bit of Vietnam. In the end, they made a deal that Vietnam would not lose any of their land if Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia did not lose any of their land. So everything here stayed the same. Now we come to India. They suffered quite a bit. So we have Pakistan getting beefier, and we have China getting this portion of land over here, as well as India's eastern part. So now India is just this. Over here in Central Asia, we see Iran and Afghanistan getting parts of Turkmenistan, and Kazakhstan getting the rest of Uzbekistan. In the Caucasus region, Russia completely annexes Azerbaijan, Armenia, and part of Turkey. And we see Iraq get quite a bit of Saudi Arabian land. Yemen completely annexes Oman, and Israel is forced to let Palestine go. And that is it. That's the peace treaty. So I would like to thank you for taking time out of your day to watch my video. And once again, as stated in the beginning, if you have any interesting ideas, put them in the comments. There's like a 99% chance I'll do it as long as it is interesting. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Goodbye.